On the quiet streets of Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles, the nighttime atmosphere carried an eerie stillness. A gentle breeze carried faint echoes of distant traffic. Inside a sleek Cybertruck, Elon Musk was driving, lost in thought. The city lights reflected off the vehicle's glass, creating a dreamy scene. But Elon's mind was consumed by thoughts of his latest project. Everything seemed like an endless cycle of plans, goals, and challenges. Suddenly, his attention was caught by a figure in the dimly lit corner of the street. A little girl sat huddled on the cold concrete in front of a convenience store. Her petite frame was almost swallowed by an oversized hoodie, and her legs were drawn up tightly to keep warm. In her small hands, she held a worn cardboard sign with scrawled writing, "Hungry and need help." Elon slowly pulled his Cybertruck to the curb, its tires crunching against the gravel with a soft crackle. The vehicle's headlights illuminated Sophie, causing her to flinch slightly. Elon stepped out, his every movement catching the curious eyes of passers-by. A world-famous billionaire, dressed simply, walking toward a homeless child? People instinctively pulled out their phones, capturing the moment as if they couldn't believe it was real. Elon crouched down, meeting her gaze. "Hi there," he said warmly. "What's your name?" She looked up, her eyes filled with both caution and curiosity. "Sophie," she answered softly, as if afraid her voice might shatter the moment. Elon nodded, his eyes softening. "Are you here all by yourself?" Sophie gave a small nod but said nothing more. Elon noticed her tiny hands trembling, unsure if it was from the cold or from fear. In that instant, he felt the fragility and quiet resilience within her. Gently, he took off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. "Here, this will help keep you warm," he said kindly. She stared at him, her expression shifting from skepticism to a hint of trust. "Why are you doing this?" Sophie asked, her small voice filled with genuine curiosity. "Because no one deserves to feel this cold, especially not you," Elon replied. "Have you eaten anything yet?" Sophie shook her head. He stood up and extended his hand toward her. "Come on, let me treat you to a nice meal." Sophie hesitated, glancing around as if searching for a reason to decline. But the warmth and sincerity in Elon's eyes eased her apprehension. Slowly, she reached out her small hand, taking his. Together, they walked toward the Cybertruck, leaving behind the astonished gazes of onlookers. The golden glow of the streetlights cast elongated shadows of Elon and Sophie as they approached the vehicle. Inside the Cybertruck, its sleek, modern interior with refined details left Sophie wide-eyed in amazement. To her, it wasn't just a car. It was like an entirely different world, full of luxury and mystery. Elon opened the car door and gently helped Sophie into the passenger seat. "Don't be shy. Just think of this as your home," he said with a soft smile. Sophie sat quietly, still clutching Elon's jacket tightly around her. She wasn't used to the warmth coming from the vents. Her eyes wandered over every detail in the car, from the large touchscreen on the dashboard to the soft LED lights inside. "This car, it's so different," she murmured. Elon smiled. "Do you like it? This is the Cybertruck, a car I designed myself. It's tough and strong, just like you." Sophie didn't respond immediately, but her eyes seemed to light up a bit. In her short life, she had rarely, if ever, been praised like that. "I'm not strong," she said, her voice trembling. "I'm just trying to survive." Her words left Elon momentarily speechless. He drove in silence for a moment, trying to compose himself as emotions swelled within him. As a businessman, he had faced countless challenges and setbacks. But what Sophie had endured made him realize that true strength often lies not in success or wealth, but in the ability to face adversity every single day. "You're stronger than you think, Sophie," Elon said firmly. "You've gone through more than most adults could handle." Sophie stayed quiet, but this time, her eyes weren't filled with caution. Instead, they held a faint glimmer of hope, a feeling she hadn't experienced in a long time. As the Cybertruck glided through the brightly lit streets, Elon pulled up in front of a small diner. The smell of toasted bread and fresh coffee wafted through the air as he opened the door for Sophie. "Let's go in. I think you'll like this place." Sophie hesitated, glancing at the diner nervously. "I don't have any money." Elon placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You don't need to worry about that. Tonight, you're my guest. Inside, the warm glow of the diner's yellow lights created a cozy atmosphere. A few patrons glanced up when Elon walked in with Sophie. Some recognized him but said nothing, choosing instead to observe quietly. Sophie slid into a seat at one of the wooden tables, resting her small hands on its smooth surface. Her eyes scanned the menu, but she looked unsure of what to pick. "What do you feel like eating?" Elon asked, his tone gentle. "Just a small sandwich." "That's all," Sophie said softly, her voice so quiet that Elon had to lean in to hear her. "All right," Elon said with a smile. "How about the biggest sandwich they have, plus some hot chocolate and apple pie? I think you'll like it." He turned to the server and placed their order, adding a coffee for himself. When the food arrived, Sophie stared at the enormous sandwich in front of her with wide eyes. "Can I even finish this?" she asked, a small smile spreading across her face for the first time that evening. "Of course you can, and if you can't finish, I'll help you out," Elon joked, making Sophie giggle softly. Her laughter was gentle but carried a sense of release, like the sound of a child feeling safe and warm for the first time after long, cold days. Elon quietly watched her eat, his mind stirring with ideas he knew would change her life forever. In the cozy interior of the Cybertruck, Sophie sat silently, her small hands outstretched toward the warm air blowing from the vent. The scent of leather and the soft glow of the dashboard lights made her feel like she had stepped into another world. Elon drove quietly, occasionally glancing at her. "How old are you, Sophie?" he asked, breaking the silence. 10, she replied, her voice as light as a whisper. "Have you been here for a long time?" Sophie bit her lip, her gaze dropping to her frail hands. "A few months, since my mom passed away." Elon could sense the deep pain in her words. "Can you tell me about your mom?" he asked gently. She looked up, her eyes shimmering with unspoken stories. "My mom worked really hard. She always told me we'd have a bigger house someday, and we wouldn't have to worry about anything. But then she got sick, coughing all the time. When she passed, the landlord kicked me out because we couldn't pay the rent." Sophie's story felt like a dagger piercing Elon's heart. He could feel the helplessness of a child facing unimaginable hardships. "I'm so sorry, Sophie. But you know what? As long as you're here, things can change." Sophie remained quiet, her eyes filled with thoughts far beyond her years. "My mom always told me to be strong, but I feel so weak," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Sometimes I just want to give up." Elon's response came slowly, his voice laden with emotion. "I felt that way too, Sophie. There were days when I thought everything was over. But then I realized we can't give up, because there's always a reason to keep going." She looked up at him, her wide eyes sparkling with curiosity. "What's your reason?" she asked. Elon smiled, his eyes shining with determination. "Family, friends, and people like you. Each of us has the power to make this world a better place, even with the smallest actions." Elon's words gave Sophie pause. For a brief moment, she felt a flicker of hope, like a small candle glowing in the darkness. Outside, the city lights shimmered, reflecting off the car windows, as if reminding her that light still existed in the world. Elon continued, his voice calm yet resolute. "You know, the strongest people aren't the ones who never fall. They're the ones who get back up every time they do. And you've done that, Sophie. You've survived things most adults would find unbearable." Sophie didn't respond, but her small shoulders seemed to relax slightly. Though she didn't say it, a faint belief began to form in her heart. A belief that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't completely alone. The car came to a stop in front of a small park shaded by tall trees. Elon turned to Sophie with an encouraging smile. "Let's step outside for a bit. A breath of fresh air might help you feel better." Sophie hesitated for a moment, then nodded. They stepped out into the cool night air, where the moonlight illuminated stone pathways and a still, peaceful pond. Elon sat down on a wooden bench and patted the empty spot beside him, inviting Sophie to join. "Do you have a dream, Sophie?" Elon asked, his gaze warm and attentive, as though he wanted to hear everything she had to say. Sophie bit her lip, her eyes hesitant. "I used to want to be an engineer," she admitted, her voice small but filled with emotion. "I love math, and my mom said I was really good at it. But now, Never give up on your dreams, Elon interrupted gently, his voice brimming with passion. You don't know what the future holds, but I can promise you this. If you believe in yourself, you can achieve anything. Sophie looked at him, her eyes suddenly sparkling with something new, a spark of determination. In the stillness of the park, she felt a warmth and comfort she hadn't felt in a long time. I think I want to try again, she said softly. Elon smiled and gave her shoulder a light pat. That's all I wanted to hear. And don't worry, you won't have to do it alone. They left the park as the air grew colder. In the quiet of the Cybertruck, Elon reflected on what he had just learned from Sophie. Her dreams, paused by harsh circumstances, ignited a powerful resolve within him. This wasn't just a random encounter. It felt like a call to action. I think I know a place you'll like, Elon said, breaking the silence. Do you want to go with me? Sophie looked at him, her eyes showing a mix of hesitation and curiosity. Where is it, Mr. Elon? You'll see, he replied with a mysterious smile. The Cybertruck glided smoothly through the streets, leaving behind the bright lights of downtown and heading toward a quieter area. Finally, they stopped in front of a large building with a soft glow emanating from within. A sign at the entrance read, Tesla Innovation Center. Elon stepped out of the car, walked around, and opened the door for Sophie. Welcome to the place where dreams come true, he said, his eyes shining with pride. Sophie climbed out, still clutching his jacket, and looked up at the building. Her breath caught as she glimpsed the expansive interior, filled with machines, models, and cutting-edge technology. What is this place, Mr. Elon? Sophie asked, her voice trembling with awe. This is where my team and I bring new ideas to life, he explained. Let's go inside and take a look. They walked in, and Sophie's jaw dropped as she took in the scene. Engineers and scientists were hard at work. 3D models spun on large screens, metal and plastic shapes were being formed by advanced printers, and whiteboards were covered with intricate equations. Her wide eyes soaked in every detail like a sponge. You said you love math and wanted to be an engineer, right? Elon asked, his gaze kind yet determined. Sophie nodded, her lips pressed tightly together. But I don't know how to start again. Elon placed a hand on her shoulder. I believe that with the right opportunity, you can achieve anything, and I want to start right here. Sophie stared at him, her eyes lighting up with a glimmer of hope. You mean I could learn here? That's right, Elon said with a nod. I want you to join a pilot program I'm developing. It's not just about studying, it's about discovering your potential and turning your dreams into reality. Sophie hesitated for a moment, overwhelmed by how quickly things were changing. But I don't have anything to give back. Elon smiled, his expression growing serious. You don't have to give me anything. All I need is for you not to give up on yourself. That's enough. Elon's words were like a small flame warming Sophie's heart. In that moment, she realized that for the first time in months, she no longer felt lost. I want to try, Mr. Elon. I want to learn again, she said softly. Elon nodded, a smile of encouragement spreading across his face. That's wonderful, but first we need a plan. He led Sophie on a tour of the center, explaining how projects were conceived and developed step by step. Sophie listened intently, her focus as sharp as any dedicated student's. Elon shared stories about the challenges his team had faced, the early failures, and the triumphant successes. You see, he said, stopping in front of a model rocket being tested, nothing worthwhile comes easy, but it's those challenges that make us stronger. And I believe you can do the same. Sophie nodded, her heart now brimming with determination. Her steps grew steadier as they returned to the Cybertruck. On the ride back, she gazed at the city lights through the window. This time, instead of feeling isolated, she saw the lights as stars guiding her toward her dreams. Before parting, Elon placed a hand on Sophie's shoulder and said, We'll start tomorrow. Don't worry, you won't have to do this alone. Sophie smiled, her expression full of hope. For the first time in a long while, she felt worthy and cared for. The next day, Sophie returned to the Tesla Innovation Center with Elon, her heart a mix of excitement and nerves. The expansive hallways, bathed in soft white light, made her feel as though she were stepping into an entirely new world. Elon led her to a small meeting room where a group of engineers and educators were waiting. This is Sophie, Elon introduced her to the team, his eyes bright with enthusiasm. She's the inspiration behind a special project we're about to launch. Sophie bowed her head slightly, feeling shy under the group's attention. A young woman with a warm smile knelt to meet Sophie's eyes. "Hi, Sophie. I'm Linda," she said kindly. "I'll be helping you learn and explore the things you love. Are you ready to get started?" I, I think I'm ready," Sophie replied, her voice trembling slightly but filled with determination. Linda smiled and guided Sophie to a corner of the room where a tablet and other learning tools had been set up. "We'll start with the basics, but don't worry, it'll be fun. And if you have any questions, just let me know." Throughout the morning, Sophie focused intently on her lessons, starting with simple math problems and gradually moving to basic technical concepts. Linda patiently explained each step, and Sophie began to feel more confident. When she successfully solved a difficult problem, Linda and the engineers clapped in celebration. Sophie's cheeks turned red, but she couldn't hide her proud smile. For the first time in what felt like forever, she saw a future filled with possibilities and a place where she truly belonged. That afternoon, Elon returned to the room carrying a small toolbox. "Sophie, I've got a surprise for you," he said, placing the box on the table. Inside were the pieces of a simple robot model. "Would you like to try assembling it?" Elon asked, his eyes full of encouragement. "I'll try," Sophie replied, her small hands carefully picking up the pieces. The team gathered around her, guiding her through each step. Her fingers worked nimbly, connecting the parts, her eyes lighting up every time a piece fit perfectly. Finally, when the tiny robot stood upright on the table, the room erupted in cheers. "I did it!" Sophie exclaimed, her face glowing with excitement. Elon crouched down and placed a hand on her shoulder. "I knew you could do it. This is just the first step, Sophie." In the weeks that followed, Sophie became a regular participant in the Learning and Creativity program at the center. Each day, she not only gained new knowledge, but also discovered her self-worth. Her dream of becoming an engineer no longer felt out of reach. Meanwhile, Elon began laying the groundwork for an even greater vision. He met with charitable organizations, pitching the idea of a free educational system for homeless children, a place where they could learn and grow in a supportive environment. One evening, after a long day, Elon and Sophie sat on a bench outside the center, gazing at the starry sky. "Have you thought about your future, Sophie?" he asked gently. Sophie looked up at him, her eyes sparkling. "I want to work here, like you. I want to create things that help people." Elon smiled, his heart swelling with pride. "You will, Sophie. I believe in you. And it's not just me. The whole world will see what you're capable of." In that peaceful moment, Sophie felt a profound sense of change in her life. From a homeless girl, she had found a place to belong, a dream to chase, and someone who believed in her without hesitation. Sophie continued her studies at the Tesla Innovation Center under the dedicated guidance of Elon and his team. Each day, she learned new skills and found joy in discovery and creation. Starting with basic engineering lessons, Sophie gradually progressed to working on small projects of her own. Her eyes sparkled with determination every time she faced a new challenge. One morning, Elon brought Sophie to a conference being held at the center. "I want you to share your story with everyone," he said. Sophie's eyes widened in surprise. "Me? But I don't know what to say." Elon smiled, resting a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Just tell the truth. I believe your story will inspire so many people." In the crowded auditorium, Sophie stepped onto the stage, the spotlight illuminating her face. She looked out at the audience, feeling a mix of nerves and determination. With a voice that started out shaky but grew stronger, Sophie shared her journey, from being a homeless girl to being given the opportunity to learn and transform her life. "I used to think I didn't matter," she said, her eyes glistening with emotion. "But Mr. Elon made me realize that everyone deserves a chance. If I can change, then anyone can." As she finished, the audience erupted into applause. Tears streamed down Sophie's cheeks, but for the first time, she felt she truly belonged somewhere. Elon joined her on stage, standing beside her. "Today isn't just about Sophie," he told the audience. "It's about everyone like her. We have a responsibility to create opportunities for them because each person has the potential to change the world." From that day on, Sophie's story became a beacon of hope for those facing hardships, a powerful reminder that even small acts of kindness can create a profound impact. Sophie continued her studies and worked tirelessly, and alongside Elon, she embarked on a journey to spread change and inspire others far and wide. The story of Sophie and Elon didn't end with a single moment of help. It became a journey that inspired millions. From a homeless girl, Sophie discovered her self-worth and began transforming her life, sparking hope for others in similar situations. This story carries an essential lesson. Each of us has the power to create change. Sometimes even a small act, like stopping to listen and lend a hand, can have a tremendous impact. Elon used his resources and compassion to provide opportunities, but it was Sophie's resilience and determination that truly fueled the transformation. What about you? Have you ever considered how a small act of kindness could change someone's life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think is the most important thing when it comes to helping those around us? Don't hesitate to tell your story. It might inspire others in ways you can't imagine. If you found this story meaningful, hit the like button and share it with your friends. Doing so helps spread this message and motivates us to create more impactful content. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss heartwarming and inspiring stories like this one. Let's work together to build a community where everyone feels heard, valued, and given a chance to change their lives. Thank you for being part of this journey with us.